Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. The Modern Warfare 3 multiplayer meta did get updated quite a bit when it comes to Season 2. And so with that today, I wanted to break down the new top 10 best weapons and class setups you want to be running for multiplayer specifically. So first things first, let's talk about gear, our secondary, and our equipment, because this is the same on every single one of my setups here today. So initially for a secondary, I'm pretty much always running the Renetti conversion kit. Usually in multiplayer, it's so easy to find a decent build off the ground when you take somebody out that you can just drop this for like sort of an overkill style setup. If you're running a rifle and you kill somebody who's got an SMG, you pick that up, you're good to go, right? Like this is a solid secondary until you can replace it. Initially, I go for the diode laser, better ADS, better sprint to fire, just speeds it up a little bit here. I don't really find the need for a muzzle or an underbarrel or a stock in a lot of this, so I just go for the hollow point ammo. It does slow you down if you hit them in the legs. It's nice to stop that sprint, so it can be useful, but you could always swap that out if you really value something else more than just the ammo type here. If you really want an underbarrel for some reason, or you really want a stock or even an optic, feel free to swap that out. The 24 round mag is totally sufficient for multiplayer. I go for the Eclipser rear grip, better movement speed and sprint to fire in general, and of course we've got the carbine kit on there as well, which actually has much better mobility post season 2 update, so that's a nice little bonus on there. As far as gear goes, I am using the infantry vest, so I have obviously the better tac sprint duration and the faster tac sprint refresh, so that's obviously clutch for movement there. And then on that, I do basically end up getting all the offerings for equipment and field upgrades and everything like that. So stuns, super powerful, very effective and straightforward. Semtexes are great, frags are great, knives are great, just depends on what you value the most there. There's no real wrong answer between those three. I like the munitions box for field upgrades just for going on like long streaks. It's easy to replenish ammo, really consistent nades as well. It can be really clutch for that. And then for my actual gear here, commando gloves so I can sprint and reload at the same time, tac pads so I have that better slide cancel property, and then obviously bone conduction headset so I can hear footsteps and in-game audio a little bit better. Like I said, all of that's the same on every single loadout here today. Let's focus on weapons for the remainder of the video. First up here is my main primary Bas-B, a phenomenal choice here. Caught some slight nerfs with season 2, but the thing still rips in multiplayer. It just absolutely shreds through everyone and everything when you land shots, and this setup is going to help you land shots a lot. So initially, I got the Zen MN35 compensator, helps out with vertical and horizontal control, some stability, and it actually shortens your ping on the radar, which is a nice added bonus there. Hurts your velocity a little bit, but that's still really good for multiplayer, all things considered. Ruin Venom long barrel, better range, velocity, and control, making this gun a lot more predictable. I actually use the choke angled grip in this case, which really focuses on some mobility and horizontal control, and I use this a lot in multiplayer because only hurting your vertical control and a little bit of ADS speed is not a huge deal. That's an incredibly predictable thing to counter just by yourself, so really nice addition there with some mobility and some horizontal being added there. 30 round mag is totally sufficient for multiplayer. 45 is a little too slow for my liking. Then lastly, I go for the Elo sight, the MK3 reflector, nice optic there. A 2.5 times would be viable, you know, a slate reflector, a NIDAR. There's a lot of good optics that are really good for multiplayer, so if you have one that you're more comfortable with, always go for that. Next up, we got one of our brand new weapons for season 2, the BP50. Actually really like the feel of this thing for multiplayer. It's an aggressive rifle. It is so easy to use. I just love the overall feel of this thing. Kills pretty quickly as well. So initially here, I'm going for the Cassis brake compensator. Really only focuses on horizontal control, but it makes patterns so predictable. That said, obviously, other compensators that we've used before are also very good as well. There's a lot of good options in the category in general. So if there's one that you prefer a little bit more because of its pros with gun kick or vertical controller, lesser UAV pings, whatever the case is, definitely go for your level of comfortability there as well. I do use the hand stop on here. It's mobility based, but this gun's so easy to use that it's nice to get some mobility benefits here where necessary. Obviously, in multiplayer, if you can make guns more aggressive and still usable, that's a huge W to come away with. There's a really fast fire rate on this thing, and to me, the 45 round mag is almost necessary just because if you're trying to play a little bit more aggressive and you don't end up just frying with your initial magazine, which, you know, players move, you're gonna miss some shots, that's natural. You could be left hanging there with an awkward reload. So 45 is just that added safety net. Again, we got the reflector sight on there. Then the Moat 40 stock gives you control and some mobility, better ADS speed, better general movement speed. Really nice to have that on there. So this is an aggressive, snappy, and strong rifle setup, and like I said, I really love the feel of this. this. Now, no surprise here, but the MCW is still in the multiplayer meta. It's been like the #1 meta rifle since launch. It's still great here. It's even been nerfed a couple of times, including with Season 2, but this thing is just a laser beam. It's the ACR. It's gotta be good right now. I'm not complaining. I love this thing. It's a fantastic feeling rifle, and it's one of my all-time favorites. The ACR is, and this being the closest resemblance, I'll take it for sure. Again, I got the Cassis brake on here. Great choice as mentioned. Choke angled grip yet again for all the same reasons as before. In this case, I go for the Mammoth heavy barrel. This is just better range and better velocity. This thing's so straightforward and so easy to use. It's not necessary to, you know, force that control in where you don't need it, because it's going to end up slowing you down in other areas, right? Still using the reflector side. If you can't tell, the ELO is my favorite optic for MP. And then I really like the A90 Venom stock on here. It's all mobility based with movement speed, some ADS speed. You could even maybe try collapse, but the recoil is going to be a lot more noticeable, so definitely take that into consideration. But Venom's worked for me. I like the aggressiveness that it brings to the build, and I mean, like I said, MCW's been good since day one. No surprises that it's still great right now. Now, right there with the MCW being good from day one, we've also got the Rival 9, sort of the two top choices for the CDL since launch. This thing flies and fries. I love the mobility benefits of the Rival 9. This thing literally just, you can sprint around the map at max speed and you feel like you are skating. It's so fast. The mobility is fantastic. Also has really good damage stats as well, so best of both worlds really is what we're getting out of this. Again, we've got the M35 compensator, really convenient, especially for a build like this. You're only losing a little bit of ADS speed and a little bit of velocity, which is not a huge deal because we're getting a lot of that back in terms of mobility here. For instance, BW4 hand stop, better movement speed, strafe speed, ADS speed, and sprint to fire. So huge for making this thing crazy aggressive. I'm still running the 7mW laser on here. This was nerfed a little bit ago, and that said, there are some better MW3 options, like for instance, the Chimera. It's just a little bit more visible. So if you want a better ADS and sprint to fire at the cost of standing out more to enemies, upgrade to this, but I love lasers like this for an aggressive build just because it's even snappier, right? The Vice Assault grip is great here because it's basically free recoil control. It hurts your idle sway a little bit, but in SMG ranges, not really going to be all that noticeable, right? Especially when you're running and gunning. Lastly, I go for the tactical stock. This is better mobility as well with very minimal cons, basically just a recoil gun kick. So you're getting so much mobility out of a setup like this, and it's really not killing it in any other way. So it's easy to use, fast TTK, fast mobility, checking all the right boxes. Now, the new Ram 9 is also a phenomenal feeling SMG. I was using this leveling up, and right away I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna enjoy using this thing too. Great mobility here as well, really easy control, and it fries and seems to have really good range. This setup in particular I think is a ton of fun. I am actually using the integrated suppressed barrel, and you'll look at this and say, whoa, it's kind of killing the range and the velocity a little bit, but let's be honest, it's a multiplayer SMG. You're running and gunning with this thing. Sure, an only 10-meter damage range is not great for a first damage range, but that's not going to kill it at the end of the day. There are SMGs with worse damage ranges that are still viable, right? And you're getting really good mobility benefits out of this thing in terms of movement speed, sprint to fire, strafe, and everything like that. So those are acceptable cons for multiplayer. I would not use that in Warzone at all, but for MP, it's obviously super different, so I get by with that. Skeletal vertical grip on here hurts my horizontal just a little bit, but it's not a huge deal. Like, you can certainly force your way into close range fights with the mobility benefits. You get that it's not going to be super effective on your gunfights there, and you get better vertical and movement speed with ADS and sprint to fire, so I like that a lot. I am using the Razor Hawk here. This is one of these MW3 ones that's very visible but gives you crazy sprint to fire and ADS. I do use the 40 round mag, fast fire rate. I feel like with 30 I was just reloading too much for my liking, so upgraded to 40, felt really good there. Then motion tac pad stock on here hurts the control a tad bit, but you're getting better ADS and sprint to fire, and a little bit better hip fire there too if you're transitioning between the two. So this is a super aggressive option for an SMG, and it feels really good. No surprise, it's a battle pass gun. Of course it's going to be good. By the way, as we are going through all the setups here today, if you enjoy the video or if you find it helpful, do me a favor, drop a like on it. It is always really appreciated. And if you're new to the channel, you want to guarantee that every single day you are up to date with news, updates, patch notes, and meta breakdowns, be sure to hit that subscribe button and join us on the road to 1 million subs. But moving on here, next up, we actually got some MW2 options shining. They're pretty good in multiplayer. There's several of them on this list that we're about to get into. The M13B, this is a solid choice for sure. Pretty low recoil rifle, and it actually is very versatile. You could use it a bit more aggressively in like some close range, mid-range fights, and then even over range as well. So if you want to play Stash House with this, it'll be all right. If you want to play Ground War with this, it'll be all right. I love that about this gun for sure. So I like the Stir 45 Sky Fury compensator here. Gives a lot for just base general recoil and vertical control. Nothing on gun kick, and it only hurts your ADS speed. That said, side. Obviously, some of those other compensators that we've talked about would be viable as well if you want to try those out and see which one feels the best for you. Ruin heavy support underbarrel here just because I am focused a little bit on some movement in other places. I want to make sure I'm still maintaining good accuracy, so that helps out with that. D37 grip here is something I've kind of been back and forth with. I like the Bruin flash and I like the D37. You are going to notice that the idle sway cons here might kick in a little bit, but you're also getting some better control here too. So if you can learn the pattern, that will help you out for sure. If you're using this as a bit more of an aggressive build, Bruin flash for that ADS and sprint to fire is not too bad either. I also go for the R90 factory stock. This is better control and a little bit of better strafe speed, so definitely keeping up with that agile sort of rifle style build that we're going for here, I would say. Then I go for the slate reflector here just to mix things up a little bit. MK3 reflector would work fine too, but yeah, overall, don't sleep on the M13B. This thing, while it's an old MW2 weapon, is still keeping up with all the new guns here too. Now the Chimera, another MW2 gun that I really love the feel of here in multiplayer, just because it's really like an AR SMG hybrid. This is mainly meant for like mid-range max. I wouldn't really use this at long distances, but for an aggressive rifle, there are a few that are better than this in the game right now, especially with this build. It's so easy but still so aggressive at the same time. So I got the ZEM 35 compensator yet again, no surprises there. The Vorpal barrel helps out with range control and a little bit of attack sprint speed, nothing too crazy, but range and control is nice on there for sure, especially when we're trying to extend that initial really good damage range. That helps out a lot there. I also got the angled underbarrel here, only focuses on horizontal control and that's it, but it doesn't hurt your ADS speed, only a little bit on your vertical control, which is not a huge deal in the close range. So this is a pretty beneficial underbarrel for a weapon that's already relatively easy to use. I do go for the Chimera laser here, bright but also snappy and aggressive, and as you can tell, I like my guns to feel like that. And then also I go for the D37 grip just because close range, again, we get some nice added control on there, and that idle sway con's not going to be a huge deal when we're fighting at, you know, 20 meters, 25, 30 meters. It'll be just fine there and won't really affect gunfights too much. So another weapon that you might be sleeping on because it's old, you know, MW2, boring. It can hold its own just fine. Now the Striker actually got a solid buff here with season 2, and it's been an SMG that I've really enjoyed in multiplayer for some time. Now it's better than ever, right? And this setup is just so lethal for what you're trying to do. Initially, ZEM 35 compensator keeps it accurate, keeps it steady, super easy to use here. Even with iron sights out to the mid-range, it's gonna be just fine there. MSP98 hand stops, pretty solid. It hurts your horizontal just a little bit, but honestly, there's not a ton of horizontal bounce on this gun. It's one of the easier options in the game. Also gives you a ton for mobility and some decent other control aspects as well. The Striker long barrel only helps out with range and velocity, but really makes it so that the solid damage ranges that the Striker already has stand out even more versus some other close and mid-range options. Then I go for the SAC and ZX rear grip. This is for just better control in general, again, making it pretty easy to use. Then I also go for the MK2 light stock as well. Better movement speed, better sprint speed, just speeding up a tad bit there. This is an aggressive but also very versatile SMG that really can almost be used in some mid-range like a rifle. It just obviously is a lot faster. Now I gotta talk the Stalker because this was already a sniper that I really like to use in multiplayer. The problem was it just wasn't aggressive enough for me. However, season 2 finally gave us the option for no stock, and I love how snappy and how fun it is to run around in quick scope with this thing. This is a bit of an interesting build because I do want some decent velocity because I am sniping. Obviously, I'm gonna play some distance here and there. It's obviously not the smartest thing to use a sniper and go running into every single tight little doorway or, you know, choke point on a map just because SMG's probably going to be holding that down pretty well. You like to have the versatility there, so I do use the fission barrel. It hurts your ADS speed a little bit, but it brings that velocity up to over 1,000, so you can snipe with this wherever you want. You can quick scope with it because we got the fast ADS speed, but also it extends that, you know, sort of option for it to be good out to any range you really would need for multiplayer, right? I do use the Razor Hawk laser sight here for that fast ADS, and 8% increase there is pretty solid. I also go for the 6.6 times scope here. It is slowing your ADS down a little bit. It is what it is. The base optic is a little bit too zoomed in for multiplayer for me, especially for like aggressive sniping. So this is zoomed out enough, but still gives you enough solid zoom that you can see over range, right? Obviously, we got no stock on there. And then just behind the face cam, I'm also using the light bolt. That's just going to allow me to get my shots off a little bit quicker back to back to back, so you can be a little bit more snappy and aggressive with that. So very fun sniper setup here post season 2. And then lastly here, we've got the HRM9, and really this setup is my speedy, fast run and gun at all costs, you know, small map mosh pit go-to option. This gun, as you can see, it's small, but holy cow, it flies and it fries. If there's ever a definition of it in the dictionary, this is the picture next to it, right? So initially, because I am going all in on mobility, we got to have some control here. So I do use the ZEM35. If you want a bit more control, you could always maybe upgrade a little bit to a Jack BFB or a different compensator to help out. But this to me will be sufficient for where you're using this. This is an ultra close range based SMG. I go for the Thor 90 barrel. It's going to help out with mobility and hip fire, hurt your control a tad bit there. I won't lie, you could also upgrade to Princeps Long if you wanted to. It'll extend the range of velocity some. It's not going to do much for your control, but if you wanted a bit more range on your setup, that would be an option. It'll just be a tad bit slower, so keep that in mind. I do go for the DR6 hand stop, solid mobility all across the board. If you wanted to use something like angled though, that'd be a really good option too, just for some control with very minimal cons there. Assault rear grip, I do want some control on here for sure, so that'll help out even more. And then I go no stock, all in on mobility here. That said, hatchet light is viable as well. It's a lot slower than no stock, but still faster than not having any stock, right? It's a little bit more controllable too. So you could go either or there, whatever you're comfortable with, but it's really fun to have this thing fly around and just melt players back to back to back. For shipment, for stash house, rust, those smaller maps, this works really well. And that being said, those are the top 10 best weapons and class setups to be running here in MW3 Season 2. And that's going to wrap things up. If you enjoyed the video, do me a favor, drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button on your way out to guarantee you're always up to date with all things going on in the world of Call of Duty. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.